Last April, when I was in Ukraine, we linked up with Artem and his charity Law for People. They were our first port of call in Kyiv. And we gave them some supplies thinking, yeah, we've helped. And they said, no, come out with us, help us distribute it. So Artem really taught us how to distribute aid in Ukraine, how to do it effectively, how to beep horns when you're in certain areas to attract people and show that you're a friendly individual and not a invading force. And they were a group which got us into Bucha and Irpin a few days after they drove all the Russians out, so they're very well respected in Ukraine.
I met Jack Ross in Kiev, and as I remember, it was April 2022, and Russian armed forces just leave this region, and people left without any food, without anything. And it was my first idea to organize volunteer network around these situations. I called to my friends, I called to members of my organizations, then I met Jack, and together we supplied a lot of humanitarian to this area. I think more than 40 tons. Every day 5-6 tons were delivered. Now we made more than 55 humanitarian missions, main humanitarian missions during 2022, and every mission is not less than 5 tons of humanitarian. And now we are trying to make our missions not less than 8 tons of aid, and it's 1 or 2 missions every month, and only front lines of war.
He ended up becoming my godfather. I got baptized into the Ukraine Orthodox Church. My mum's a Catholic and my dad's a Presbyterian, so I never ended up being baptized. And while I was over there, I thought, I am happy to go to some of these dangerous areas, but I am a Christian and I'd like to be baptized. And so I spoke to Artem and Father Vladimir and ended up being baptized into the Orthodox Church, and Artem stood in as my godfather. And since then, he's been a major asset to us, helping us to get permissions to go to areas in Ukraine.
Today we are supplying Donetsk region, Zaporizhzhia region and Kharkiv region near front lines. We supplied people in areas where it's closed for any volunteers. It's very dangerous, but we are doing it.
Unfortunately, we live in a clickbait era. We live in the era of social media where everything's very fresh, very current, trends come and go very quickly. And that means actually with things like aid to Ukraine, people were really keen at the start because it was a trendy thing, it was the cultural thing, everyone was talking about it. And now it's not as trendy, it's not as cultural, less actors, less politicians are talking about Ukraine. There's a lapse of interest, the media moves on.
We have problems with donations to Ukraine. I don't know why, maybe it's vacation time, maybe Ukraine is not interesting. They think that war is something like on televisions. The war is not only on front lines. The war in Ukraine is everywhere. Civilians every day is struggling to live normally.
That's why it's great the Telegraph does this series with us, because we keep Ukraine relevant, because it is very relevant for the people in Ukraine. Just because people aren't tweeting about it anymore doesn't mean the bombs aren't falling on people. And so it is becoming frustrating for Ukrainian groups because they're losing that Western support as people move on to other issues. And there are plenty of very good and worthwhile issues to support around the world, but the reality is the Ukraine war is happening now. I think lots of people misunderstand what's happening in Ukraine, particularly around Kyiv. Images surfaced recently of a lot of people partying in Kyiv, and life seems as it was normal, as it was before the war. That's not the reality. A lot of people are going out and trying to live the lives they lived before the war. They perhaps are forgetting, it might be a bit of mental health, it might be a bit of a coping strategy. They're trying to act as if the war's not happening. And, you know, that sends a certain narrative around the world, but it's not the case. Kyiv's not safe. People are still dying on a weekly, if not daily basis. And it's, while they do have a very good system which shoots down Russian drones, you're really turning a sniper rifle round into a shotgun blast. When the Patriot system shoots down these drones, they fragment into small pieces and they still smash windows, they smash buildings, and they do kill people. It's not a foolproof method of defense, and there is really no foolproof method of defense against that many incoming rocket attacks and drones on Kyiv. And it is hitting the Ukrainian people. They like to put on a strong facade, but when you do talk to them about it, they get emotional because they have to live with this day in, day out. A lot of them have brought their families back into Ukraine after they were initially evacuated, but that's more because of the morale, it's more because of the war effort. They want their family to help them rebuild their country. They want to pretend as if the war's not going on, but a lot of the soldiers in Ukraine, a lot of the people helping, their families are under a constant bombardment. We're there and we see how bad it is every time. It's non-stop shelling, it's non-stop rocket attacks pretty much everywhere in the country. But we're very fortunate. We get to leave, we get to go home at the end of the mission, where these people live it day in, day out. There's no escape for them. A lot of them can't leave the country and they're forced to endure this terror.